Hey guys, welcome back to your favorite Gimp with a Limp, and I am here with a special treat for you. This one actually came in right before our little girl was born, so I didn't have a chance to take and get it filmed before we ended up in the hospital. So it's been actually sitting here set up on my table for a couple of weeks, waiting for me to jump on it. And this game is Jagged Alliance, the board game. And I am sure plenty of you have very fond memories of Jagged Alliance, playing it back in the day. I actually never played the first one. I did, however, play Wildfire, the second one, or a classic. I can't remember if Wildfire is the one that they updated or not. Regardless, back in the 90s, I played the hell out of it. And the general principle is it was a computer game that was one of those 2D isometric, you're top down looking down at your little troopers, and you're running a mercenary company basically, and you can hire mercenaries to take and go out and complete missions. And you were trying to liberate the Isle of I'm gonna butcher it. Someone's gonna make fun of me down in the comments. Almuerta, I think, is the area that you were trying to go after. And actually the main enemy in the game was this lady here, Diana Reitman. She's one of the dictators that you can play against in the game, so I've got her set up there. But I absolutely love that game. Anyone who played Fallout or Jagged Alliance or other games in that that time frame where you were going around getting supplies and moving your troops tactically and trying to get them to survive, you know, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, and you'll have fond memories of it. And if you haven't, it's on Steam. Their summer sale still going. Go check that shit out. It's definitely worth checking out. But like I said, the principle was you would hire mercenaries. They would work for you for so long. You could hire them with gear or without gear. And then you would use those mercenaries to go clear different sectors of the map. And you were trying to take control away from the dictator and get it to the rebel. Well, they decided to do a Kickstarter for this board game, and they're recreating that. I mean, they have the same basic principle here. I actually have to thank you guys for me having this, because they put out a questionnaire to their backers asking them for names of reviewers who they wanted to actually be sent a review copy of the game to take and do videos on it. And evidently a handful of you guys put in my name. So I ended up getting a copy of it, which I really do appreciate. You guys are awesome. One other thing did come with it. Let me grab it here, show you guys real quick. There is a little expansion called The Underground. Has new missions, new enemies, new gear. Has some of these little spider looking things and one of those evil German scientist looking dudes. So new weapons and crap like that, new areas that you can go to. So looking forward to trying that out. For our purposes here, I actually have Scenario 2 set up to play because it has pretty much everything that I need to show you guys. I decided not to go with Scenario 1 because it was such a basic, just learning scenario that it wouldn't have enough to really show you guys. Now, strangely enough, this one is miniatures-like. I'm sure plenty of you guys have seen games of this ilk on Kickstarter. I have a buttload of them, and they're dungeon crawl-esque. You'll have your group of hero minis fighting the bad guy minis in some way, shape, or form, with item cards and enemy cards and custom dice and big baddies being represented in some way, shape, or form. There's multiple different types of these games, so it really comes down to the theme that you're looking for on what you want to get into, whether it's fantasy or video games, you know, certain types of video games and mercenaries like you've got with this. I like them all. I'm a miniatures junkie. I love all this type stuff, so I back probably way too many of them than I should. Let me show you guys some of the other minis that come with the game. It's actually relatively light when it comes to minis for this game. A lot of these type games, they go way heavy on the miniatures for stretch goals, and then you end up having a buttload of them that you don't really do a whole lot with. It seems like they went in a different pattern. I think they were probably trying to keep the game at a lower cost point, because so many of these Kickstarters now end up being 100, 150, 200. I mean, I saw one of them that to get the complete set, you were looking like $300, and people were buying that shit. I think that was Batman, but usual stuff. Mercenaries, shield guys, dogs. Does have a cool tank though. You guys gotta admit that does look pretty cool. So that's one of the enemies that can be in the game. And of course, this is not to scale, but it has to be able to fit on the board. If it was scaled to the miniatures, it would take up too much of the board space. Now, there is one other thing when we're talking about components that I don't really like. Okay, and I'm not trying to hate on them too much, but like I said, they went minis light. And when it comes to the representation of the heroes, of the mercenaries in this game, they don't have a specific miniature representing each one of your specific mercenaries. I've got 3 set out here in front of me. I'll show you guys those here in a sec. So you get, I think it's 6. Yeah, 6. I've got 3 set out here, and they're generic. They're not representing anyone specifically. Like this one chick, Cynthia here, is one of the ones that I picked, and she has 2 guns represented on her card, so I just picked for her this mini to represent that one, since she's also got 2 guns. But none of them are specific to any of the mercenaries themselves. They can all be used interchangeably. I mean, I guess except for the male-female aspect of it. That I didn't like as much. I like things to be very regimented and very specific. This mini goes to this one, this mini goes to this one. It's a relatively small gripe though, and if it saves cost on the back end and gets more people back in the game, I can live with it. I understand why they did it, so I'm not hating on it too much. I do like the fact that there is a big stack of mercenaries. I've got 3 sitting in front of me, and I think there's 13 total different mercenaries that you can use in the game. Speaking of the mercenaries though, that's something else that I've got to touch on, and it again addresses the components. And I don't know if you guys can see this as well. These I've actually had sitting under a heavy box for a couple of days now, and you can see how they're warped. When it came to the cardboard that came with the game, the tokens themselves had to be punched out, so little stuff like this was punched out, but the bigger pieces like the map and the mercenary pieces and the dictators were already punched out. So you didn't have them in a big punch board that you had to, you know, break out of the sheet. So these were already just in the box themselves, all right? I don't know if that had something to do with it or not, but all of the mercenary boards are warping on me, and warping to a fair extent. Let me see if I can, yeah, you can see if I push down over on this side, that's lifting up. This one, yeah, this one's actually really bad. That's doing that, and they're all tilting up in the same direction. It might just be the box that I got. Maybe it got bumped in shipping. Maybe, you know, anything could have happened. I could have got a bad stack. It's not the end of the world. You can straighten these things out by putting some weight on them or just bend them a little bit. And the good part is it is not affecting the map pieces themselves. I looked, all these guys are still sitting there nice and pretty, so no problems there. And the other ones that are in the box aren't bending either. So if it's just these warping a little bit, that's not the end of the world for me. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt when you're, you know, trying to take care of your troops and, you know, control their fatigue and everything that we'll touch on here in just a minute. And the boards are tilted just a little bit, but not the end of the world. Now, speaking again on the dungeon crawl aspect, like I said, they follow pretty much right along with what you've seen if you've done with the other Kickstarters. You've got a buttload of tokens representing all the different status effects and threat levels and money and icons and objectives and everything that you've seen before. It's there. Different event decks, cards for the enemies. These are your spawn cards, the little red ones. They'll have multiple different types, whether it's question mark or single skull, double skull, or triple skull for the higher threat levels. And then you've got loot cards with rank symbols for the different levels of loot that you can get, you know, first, medium, and the best loot there. And then I forget what these are. These events. Oh, these are extra lieutenants. They can help the dictators. And then there's this interesting thing called the aim deck. And if you look in the top left, it is numbered. You will be told as you play through your campaign when to draw those cards. You actually start off your campaign with a few specific ones. You see these are aim cards. I think it's 01 through 09 are the ones you start off with. And it basically gives you your starting equipment that you can take and use for the game. So cool way that they've got that going on. There are extra allies, equipment, missions, like a whole mess of stuff. It's a system that kind of reminds me of the Fallout game by Fantasy Flight game. So if you guys have played that one, the aim deck reminds me of their quest deck. Let me take and show you some of the equipment cards real quick so you understand how that's going to work. Just looking at the equipment card, top right is the cost versus what you pay for it, or you get half if you sell it. Here, this symbol with a little arrow with a number next to it is how far you can shoot. Now, I'm gonna make sure to use their terminology for it. Each one of these squares is a sector. So this whole map is the region that we're in. We have 6 sectors, and then all these individual areas that are broken up inside of the sectors are areas, okay? So this range symbol is how many areas that you can shoot. If one of these mercs was carrying this shotgun, they could only shoot someone in the space that they're in because the range is 0. Obviously, if they have a range of 1, they can shoot adjacent, range of 2, and then so on. The enemies operate in the same fashion. If you look on theirs, they have a range as well. We'll get more into the enemy cards when we actually start going with those guys, but you see they have health, armor, damage, range, and stealth. So looking down lower on the card, you see numbers and dice. This game does have custom dice, which is cool. I always love it when they have custom dice. We have yellow, orange, red, and blue. So these are your weakest, medium, strongest, and then these are used in special circumstances. The number to the left when looking at your weapon is how many fatigue you have to spend to take and do that action. So for this Mossberg, if I wanted to just fire one and the arrow means push. So if I wanted to spend 1 fatigue, I could roll 1 yellow die and then apply whatever damage was done. However, if I spend 2 fatigue, which we will get into fatigue cubes here in just a sec, if I want to spend 2 fatigue, then I get to roll 2 dice. And most of your weapons are going to take and operate in that type of fashion. You do have things like armor and attachments and upgrades and other stuff that you can use as well. Here we see an example of really basic armor because it doesn't even have stealth ready. Flak jacket, and this just provides 1 yellow die of potential defense. That's cool. And then in the bottom, both weapons and I dropped my cards. Both weapons and armor and other types of, actually let me set one of these down so I stop dropping. Other types of equipment. So say like even grenades will have this durability icon there on the bottom. You see those wrench symbols? Up above it, it will tell you whatever it is. So add 1 extra yellow die in this defensive roll if you spend a durability. So you would take and put a black cube on one of those 2 durability slots, and then you would get an extra defense die to your roll. You can repair your durability at some points. There are occasions you can do that. But if you spend all of your durability, then you lose that special ability, or, you know, it's like you ran out of grenades, that type of shit. So, neat system. Similar to other stuff that we've seen before as far as fatigue and spending your points and then having to move it, decide what you're going to do. Let's look at our Mercenary board here real quick. And this reminds me of Conan, that miniatures game. The one where they didn't have a solitaire version. Otherwise, I would have got it. God, I hated that shit. They had to have a DM. But if you know which one I'm talking about, it's the one where you had so much I think they call it fatigue as well, that you could spend and you could use it to make extra strong attacks, or you could use it to move or do whatever. But if you blew all your fatigue, then for your next turn, you would only have, you know, a couple of cubes to use, and you'd be very weak because you burned yourself out the previous turn. This game operates on a similar principle. That's why we have our little red cubes here. Each one of my guys, you'll notice, it says 6 here. That's how many she's supposed to start with, but there are 7 sitting here. That's because I am playing the solo version of the game. They do have some amendments for it. One of them is you'll have like 3 mercenaries, and each one of them gets 1 extra stamina cube. So that is a nice little bonus there. You see to the left, it says fatigue, and then to the right, wounds. So let's look at our weapon here, one of her weapons. She's actually carrying a couple of these. Focus on you damn thing. 38 Smith & Wesson Special. She can either spend 0 for 1 or 2 fatigue for 1 plus a guaranteed success is what the star is. So let's say she spent 2 fatigue. Okay, we'll move our 2 fatigue over there. She shot her weapon. She attacked the enemy. You see where it says 2 here. The next time she activates, she'll take 2 fatigue from her fatigue box and put it into her stamina box. So that's how she'll recover fatigue. There are extra ways to recover fatigue that you guys will see later on. Things like leadership or equipment. However, if she takes wounds, wounds come from this stamina box as well. So if she takes a couple of wounds, those go over there. And then if she fires a weapon, and then if she fires her other weapon, you guys can see how you'll quickly start to run out of stamina. So you have to kind of manage that as you're going along with the game. I do like the system. I like this where you have more choices besides, oh, you got 2 actions. You can move, shoot, jerk off, you know, shit on the pot, you know, the same type shit. I like to have a little bit of variety here where I'm having to make this choice. Is it worth it to me to spend those extra stamina to guarantee something? Or should I, you know, not take the risk? Things like that. Really cool. Center of the board, each one of them have a special ability. This chick, what is her name? Cynthia. I gotta stop calling her this chick. Someone's gonna take and start yelling at my ass for being a misogynist piece of shit. But she is ambidextrous, which gives her an extra weapon slot, essentially. So that's why I gave her the 2 38 specials, so she can basically go running and gunning. I figured with her attacking with both weapons, that gives her a couple dice, not having to use any fatigue, might do all right for her. She does have the tactical vest, which does have a yellow for its defense, and the blue die is for stealth. So for stealth, it's attempting to just avoid the enemy's attack entirely versus just mitigating it with the armor. So different way to handle it. There are some places on the map that will give you extra armor or extra stealth, just depending on where you're at. You guys will see that as we get into it. And then you see with the durability, and let's see, what does that say? Reroll 1 armor or stealth die. That's a cool way to go with it. And then we have not addressed, let me point out the simple things. Top here, these are allies. Allies are like extra equipment that you can have. And then your inventory is over to the right side of the board. Just wherever you can put the cards. This is how they've got their board set up, but I've got them all nice and tucked together, so they're neat for me. Left side, we have skills. You can use skills as a command action, which is what this token represents. So if you use your command action, you flip it over, and then at the end of the round, you'll take and refresh all your command actions. The top one is leadership. The middle one is mechanical, so repairing, durability. That's what that one is. And then the bottom one is medical. So you can take and perform those actions. If you wanted to do a leadership and she doesn't, so let's say, ooh, he doesn't. I picked someone with it, yeah. If Kyle here wanted to do a leadership as a command action, he could take and spend his command token to do that. He would roll 2 dice and then, or 2 yellows. And then for each success that he got, he could take and have allies restore some of their fatigue from their fatigue box to their stamina. So let's say he got 2 successes, he could give both to Bobby, or he could give 1 each to Cynthia and Bobby. I don't remember if they can use it themselves. I have to check that off the top of my head. I don't think they can. Durability, obviously, is going to be repairing durability. So you can repair it for your equipment or your allies' equipment if they're in the same area as you are. Medical is the same thing, repairing wounds from your wound box back to your stamina box. We're not going to take and go over the whole stack of special abilities for the rest of the mercenaries, but I will tell you the rest. For the guys that I'm running, let's see, he is the Slavic Hercules. You never take wounds, you receive fatigue instead. So he's like a beast. He'll just take and keep moving it all over here. But if you take and have no red cubes in your stamina box and you need to take more fatigue or more wounds, you take a serious wound. If you take 2 serious wounds, you die. And just like the video game itself, if you die, you have to hire someone else. So you'll take and get rid of this mercenary board, and you would have to replace them with one of the other mercenary boards, and they would get half of the equipment that mercenaries are carrying, plus any remaining starting equipment that you have. So he's got that. He also has the 12 gauge rifle, which has a range of 1. It is heavy though. And you see it's decent. It's got orange cubes. For 3 stamina, it's 2 orange cubes. So he could, or 2 orange dice. So he could do a good amount of damage with this. So looking forward to trying that out. He also has the tactical vest, which is the same thing that Cynthia is wearing. Then I have Kyle Shadow Simmons. Let's see, what's his special ability? Killing an enemy while you're standing in a jungle area skips the enemy activation. Ooh, that's actually really good. In your sector after your turn. This game, after each friendly mercenary goes, not after all mercenaries, but after each mercenary, the enemies in the area or in the sector that the mercenary was in when they activate, and that's when they'll attack the closest ones and move up on them, shoot them, stab them, all that other good stuff. So if he's able to take and get into jungle and not get caught and they don't activate, that's a big boon for us. He has the Ruger Mini 14, cool rifle, always like this. Range of 1 stamina to use 1 yellow die, or 2 stamina to use 1 yellow die plus a guaranteed success. That's what that little star icon again means. And then well, it's harder to film this and explain a board game than you guys would think. And then when you're looking at the durability underneath his weapon, he actually has that neat little suppression symbol. So he can actually suppress people by spending his durability. So good stuff there. Unfortunately, though, he only has a flak jacket. So he's my stealthy guy. Maybe I will switch that up. Yeah, we're going to switch this up because we haven't started yet. And put my stealthy armor on him and put this just generic armor onto Hoss over here. That way they'll be set up that way. So yeah, we'll go with that. Okay, so let's take and look real quick. We'll explain just real quick how a turn is going to run. Then we'll take and explain the scenario and what our objective is. And we'll probably pause at that point since we're getting a little long in the tooth. And then we'll pick up and we'll play through a bit of scenario 2 here and let you guys see how the game actually is going to play. We do have a handy dandy reference sheet on the back of the rulebook that lists down the sequence of play for us. And you see it's pretty basic. You've got your activation, recover your command token, recover fatigue, any on activation effects, and then it lists down your actions, movement, attack, how much stamina and everything is concerned, and then command actions. Now, one thing to keep in mind with this game is that even though they do have a fair amount of stamina, you can't use the stamina to take and just keep shooting the same weapon. So like she would be cheating if she just kept, or it would be like cheating if she could take and keep firing a 0 fatigue weapon over and over and over again because, hey, it doesn't cost any fatigue, so she'll just fire until she gets it. The way it works is you can only fire your weapons once per round. So you have to take and pick whether you're going to fire them, you know, weak side or strong side, you know, that type of stuff. So if I choose to take and fire both of these at their stronger ability, I would spend the 4 stamina, but I could not spend another 2 stamina to shoot another one of them again. Okay, hope you guys get what I mean by that. Once you fired them, you've spent them for the round. You'll have to take and wait for your next round to take and continue that. Like I said, your command actions, you do get one of those per turn. I do have 2 sitting here though, because one of the extra boons of playing solitaire is you get an extra command token that any of the 3 can spend. So I just place it here in the center so that I would remember that any one of them can use it for an extra leadership or durability, medical, or there's other stuff you can do as well. Those command actions can be used to train rebels, do a group move where if you're in the same area, you can move 2 people or 3 people together, use your skills, which are the mechanical leadership, or conduct bribes, which we'll get into later. Enemy activation, like I said, let's see, looking at this sector, okay, this square, if one of my mercenaries activates, so they move and pew, 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 shoot, every other enemy will activate once this mercenary's completed their activation. So these guys activate and pew, 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 they go shooting. Then once they're done, I activate the next mercenary here. Boom, shoot, 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 boom, boom, boom. Any remaining enemies in this sector activate and continue on. It goes back and forth like that. One of your guys, all of theirs in that sector. So not the region, just the square itself, all right, are the ones that activate. Once you have gone through all of your mercenaries, that's when you're going to have the Dictator Phase. And the Dictator Phase in this scenario is a little dialed back. It doesn't have some of the aspects like missions and counterattacks, which we'll briefly touch on in a later video. It just kind of gives you the taste of how dictators operate in the game. I do like that they did it that way. There's even a neat way that they have of keeping track of the days in this game when it comes with the dictators. This is their threat level track. And as this goes up, once it reaches the top, if you have to add more, you take and reset it. And that's when the day flips from day to night. So neat way to keep track of it. For this scenario, you only have 1 day or 6 turns total to actually complete it. Let me show you guys real quick what this scenario is. Like I said, it is scenario 2, and our goal is to capture Omerta 11A before the next day. The game is lost after 6 turns, so we only get 6 turns to do this. There is an optional goal as well of liberating sectors with binocular tokens on them. Flip the token. If the token has an X, take the card number 10 from the aim deck. So I do believe there is a ally that we can get, and I randomly placed these binocular tokens out because our goal is to get here. That's why I've got our little objective token here. We have to take this small little city, this sector. So once we got this square, yay, we win. But we want to take and try to get this guy exposed so we can get an extra ally and a boon along our way. These red cards, though, will flip over and activate new enemies on the board. Let me actually grab one and show you guys real quick how that's going to work. All right. See, this one says patrol, and it has A, B, C, and D. Well, if you look on our little sectors here, A, B, C, and D. So it tells you what goes in what square. This would have a couple of the muscle guys, which I think are just the thugs, and a sniper. So you would put 2 in A, and you put a sniper in B, or B up here, if this were the card that you drew for it. So I like how they've got that little randomization. You can have other things besides just enemies. There can be tokens as well that will place onto the board, things like this. But you can see my mercenaries are only here in this sector, so that's the only one that we've got revealed. We will probably try to cut up this way. We do have a red border that we have to keep track of. I'll explain more of this stuff as we get into actually playing the game, but like red here, that is a barrier that you can't cross. And that actually goes all the way up to here. So we have to race up over to here, come down around, and you see, well, are we going to take the time and go after this one? Because we've got to go all the way up around here and then come down here and then hit this if we want to try to find that guy if he's not up here. And then we still got to take out this one. And this is going to be harder because it's got a skull versus these question marks. So neat little way. Actually, I think this one's a skull too. Yeah, this one's a skull too. All right, but we're set. I think I've explained the general gist of the game. Anything else that I haven't touched, we'll take and pick up on part 1. This was just a nice, quick, low down and dirty overview of the game. We'll pick up round 1 with our mercenaries, see if we can take out these couple of thugs here real quick, or what are they called? They're called red shirts. They're generic thugs. You always have generic thugs in games like this. See if we can take these guys out, reveal this token, and go racing up, see if we can take out Yata. All right, that's it for me. You guys take care. I'll catch you in part 2.